just for other people, I just want you to break down the birth of Mogul Millennial and how you even came up with the idea and what inspired you.
Yeah, so Mogul Millennial was created a couple years ago. Just honestly, it came from an idea that stemmed in my early years in college. And honestly, probably even before then, because I've always been like a media junkie. I think like most of us, running to get to see who's featured in Ebony or Essence or Jet magazine growing up. And so I've always been really obsessed with like reading stories about people that look like me, right? Whether that, like I said, whether it was Ebony, Jed, Black Enterprise as well growing up. And so when I was in college and like towards like the beginning of my college years, I was also already thinking about like what's the next step in my life, right? So becoming like an adult with bills, with the job and everything like that. And so I knew that I wanted to become an entrepreneur, and I also knew that I wanted to eventually, before I get to that place, I also have like a pretty influential role in corporate, so that way I can learn skills before taking a leap. And so while I was trying to figure out, okay, well, how can I how can I get to that point? I started looking for just some content online that I could relate to as somebody that was young and that was wanting to be an entrepreneur, and also, eventually climb the corporate ladder prior to then. And I couldn't find a lot of things that spoke to me as a young Black person with those aspirations. And if you think about it, I graduated I graduated from college actually a little bit early, but around that time it was like 2000, excuse me, 2008, 2009 when I was an undergrad.
Mhm.
And at that moment, a lot of media companies weren't, they didn't have like a huge digital footprint. And so, but as you know, like we were on digital, we were using the internet and all the different social networks and such. And so there
Mhm.
really wasn't anywhere for me to turn to that where I could resonate, that I could, that I could relate to. And so I actually switched my major. I was a biology major at that moment. Don't
Uh-huh.
ask me why. That was the biggest mistake. But shout out to everybody that's biology majors, because
Mhm.
y'all are incredible,
It's tough
incredibly
stuff.
smart. Yeah, it was too tough. But I switched my major the following semester, my freshman year, to communications with a minor in marketing. And then, after undergrad, I did some work in the corporate space, worked for a student housing company, and then I got my MBA. And so during that entire time, my idea was to, learn about the media space and then learn about the business side. And then throughout all that time, I was getting real life experiences. And so the crazy thing is, when it was time for me to like actually figure out what that entrepreneur, journey would look like, I didn't really realize that it would be this type of media company, right?
Mhm.
And so I was thinking about, okay, well, what kind of company would I want to start? And I realized that I was experiencing the same problem at the age of 25, years after graduating from college, that I experienced in college. There wasn't anyone in the digital space that was creating content for young Black entrepreneurs or professionals. And so from there, I started like blogging about these issues on different digital media companies, little platforms, and also on LinkedIn. And saw that like I was growing a huge following on LinkedIn because people that looked like me also cared about the same things and wanted this type of content. And
Mhm.
so, yeah, from there, I created my own website, taught myself how to do it. Eventually, I got help to make it look a lot better because I'm not a coder,
Uh-huh.
but and then saved up, quit my job, and here we are. Quit my job in January 2019, and I've been working on it full time since then.
Wow. That's amazing. And it's so crazy how sometimes when we don't find what we want to do, we have to be the ones to think, okay, so how about I just learn how to do this the best way and then create it myself?
Yeah, yeah,
And it sounds like that's pretty much what you did through trial and error.
yeah, a lot of that. A whole lot of trial and error.
Okay, so you just stated that you left working for corporate, right? In
Hmm.
January 2019, and you're
Hmm.
now you're a full-time entrepreneur. So talk
Yeah.
to me about the transition because a lot of young people, a lot of millennials are now starting to do that as well. And some people they say that it's the hardest thing ever, and other people would just say no, I actually thought about this for some time and I'm good. I'm out. I'll do this myself. I'll figure it out. So how was the
Yeah.
transition for you?
Yeah, so it's funny because becoming an entrepreneur, or now that I am an entrepreneur, I feel like I am definitely more of a risk taker. And I think to become an entrepreneur or to be an entrepreneur, you have to definitely take risks because I mean it's a risk starting a business. But prior to then, like I'm a huge planner. I plan everything out. Like I need to know what's happening from like A to Z every step of the way.
Me
And random side note, I remember once before I took a girls trip with my sister and my cousins, and I'm the itinerary person. And
too.
I have it all planned out. And I remember my sister still to this day, she'll laugh because she was like, "You even told us when we could go to the restroom and take a shower."
No.
So like, no, I'm a planner, and so like it's crazy.
Mhm.
But so honestly, like taking a leap of faith, or taking a leap into entrepreneurship, it was a matter of being faithful in what I was doing,
Mhm.
and faithful in God, because I was like scared as hell. I didn't know what would happen, right? And
Mhm.
so at that time, we weren't actually making money, like, well, real money with Mogul Millennial.
Okay.
I When I first had the idea to quit. So when I first had the idea to quit, it was me. I had a friend from high school that was technical, that would help me with a few, issues here and there on my computer,
Mhm.
with the website. And I was the one that was on the newsletter, all the social media, all the writing. And
Mhm.
so eventually, when I decided, okay, well, I'm gonna actually for real do this thing full time, I'm gonna take the leap. So I actually planned for it. I wasn't like other people, like the planner that I am, that just said, I feel it in my spirit today, so I'm gonna quit today. Like, no, I could not. It terrified me to do so. And so funny thing, I actually took a promotion for my job because I knew
Uh-huh.
that I was gonna quit. And with the promotion, more money, right? And
Mhm.
so I negotiated the heck out of a nice pay increase, and I
Mhm.
was able to stack money a lot faster. And so I planned to leave within a year. And so I
Okay.
had actually got my promotion that November before.
Mhm.
Oh, what was that? November 2018.
1918. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. And then I ended up quitting. I actually gave my job a month's notice because
Mhm.
the type of work that I was doing, I was also thinking like, okay, well, I want to be able to try to help any way I can with the transition. And so I actually put in my notice in December, and then left officially like a month later. But no, I definitely planned. I think and I definitely plan. Honestly, I'm a advocate for planning.
Mhm.
I don't think that you should just up and quit unless you honestly have rich parents, or you're just making like crazy money. But even if you're already making money in your business, you should still plan, because you don't know really what it's a difference between making money and whatever you're doing, and your side hustle or whatever. Because at the time, it is a side hustle,
Yeah.
and trying to continue to make that money and make more money as a full-time entrepreneur. Like the priorities are different. When you bring on a team, it's just a different type of vibe. And so I think you should still plan, but at the end of the day, to each his own.
Yeah, that's true. I agree with you. I think that you should take the leap of faith, but like you said, plan before you do so. Because a lot of things can happen, and so many people
Hmm.
share stories about how they decide to leave a job and then go pursue something else, and it doesn't work out sometimes. Or what happens is they'll fall so many times
Yeah.
before it actually, blossoms. So I think that's definitely good advice. Speaking of advice, though, what would you recommend? Not recommend, but what are like 5 mini lessons or pointers that you give to anyone that is trying to transition from their side hustle, making that their full time, their full time job?
Yeah. Number one, I think is something that probably a lot of people will say, but save
Mhm.
your money.
Yeah.
When I planned to leave, and with everything, I actually saved what I thought was a lot of money, but it honestly wasn't. I had to end up going through my taking money out of my 401k, like a lot, aka all of it. And so yeah, I took money out of my 401k. I had depleted my savings, and even at the time, money got real crazy, that I started just doing like little side things here and there. So Mogul Millennial was still my full-time job, but at
Mhm.
that time, I would say probably like around that summer, early fall ish. That's how long my money lasted. I thought I had saved enough. But I started, like, because I'm great with LinkedIn, and
Uh-huh.
in my job I used to also do a lot of hiring and stuff. And so I started doing like resume revisions and like little things like that. And so I would say like whatever you think your number is that you want to save, like triple it, because it's not going to be enough. Like
True.
at all. Yeah, triple it, not double, triple it, quadruple, whatever you can do with save as much money as you can.
Hmm.
And then the other thing, definitely, I would say, do your research on the industry that you want to go in on, and also on your target audience. I think that I did a pretty great job at that, but there were still, areas that, looking back where I see where I could have been a little bit more thorough, and
Hmm.
in that research that would have helped me just be able to better market Mogul Millennial to clients and to investors, and then also just be a better resource for my community. Um, the other thing I would say is get a team early. And so I didn't actually bring on team members until like a few months before I made that entrepreneurship leap. And
Okay.
so what I would recommend is that like bringing on somebody early, even if you can't afford someone, which at that time I couldn't.
Hmm.
There are other ways that you can have team members, and so you just have to find, uh, I guess, what's something that's unique that you could offer to people or to a person in exchange for their time and energy.
Hmm.
Um, or if you want, you can also like pay them in equity, but just make sure that you let it like vet over time, so that way they're not just automatically getting whatever percent that you want to give them immediately. I bet, excuse me, best over time. And then what else? I guess the last thing I would say is definitely make sure that you really have validated your idea. And so
Hmm.
even if you haven't like launched your business, right? You've done some type of validation, whether that's like you've gotten so many signups for it, so you just created a cute little landing page and people have signed up for it, or what else? Or you've done like some customer surveys and figure out, well, is this something that people would actually want?
These are all genius ideas. I definitely think whoever is listening to this or whoever is going to see this is going to be able to take some good stuff away. I know for a fact that one of the things you mentioned that I always hear as well is the fact that when people are starting out, they need help, but they don't know like how to reach out to people or how to bring people on board. Because if you think about it, we all want to get paid for what we're doing.
Hmm.
As
Hmm.
much as we can say we're passionate about what we're doing, we still got to
Nobody's
pay
that
our
passionate.
bills.
Yeah,
We
yeah,
still have to pay our bills. So it's like you do need help, but you have to figure out, like you said, a great way to, you have to figure out what's going to be able, how you're going to be able to help someone while they're helping you. I
yeah,
think
yeah.
one of the cool things that I've heard people do sometimes is hire interns. So it's
Hmm.
like you get a little bit of help for like 3 to 6 months, and you also pay the, I guess, the student in a grade because that's how
Hmm.
some people get paid. Even though I think interns do get paid both in but they get like a little salary and a grade, I believe. Some
Uh,
interns.
yeah, yeah. It just depends on what it is.
Hmm.
And so, yeah, it really just depends on what it is, and also like depending on if you've incorporated your business or not, you may or not be able, well, from a legal perspective, you may
Yeah.
or may not be able to get interns.
Hmm.
But yeah, we've actually never like brought on interns. We've
Really?
had someone part time. We've had a part time employee, full time employee, but the people that I brought on were all volunteer. And so,
Okay.
with having a media company, one of the things that uh, well, two main things that I did in like instead of payment that
Hmm.
people found desirable that has worked with me is number one, back before this whole pandemic when conferences were a thing,
Hmm.
we would basically be able to help people to get into events or conferences for free,
Okay.
by getting them like a
A
I
press
can't think of the
pass.
name of it. Yeah, yeah, thank you, a press pass. And
Hmm.
so so that's something that people always found like really exciting. And then number two, um, because I've written for other media companies before, I know that unless you are a staff writer, so keyword staff writer, not freelance writer, because I've only
Hmm.
freelanced for other companies,
Hmm.
but unless you are a staff writer and you just have a good boss, a lot of times the media company doesn't do a great job at just taking time on helping you develop more as a writer. And
Hmm.
so, and ultimately, outside of a byline, people they want to get better. And so
Hmm.
at Mogul, we've always done that. And so we work closely with the writers, help with them with editing. We don't just make changes and then publish it. We talk to them and work with them through the editing process. And then from time to time, we'll also do one-on-ones with the writers, even though they are unpaid.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's very, I feel like that's very helpful too. And sometimes doing something like that is actually more beneficial than the person getting paid because they're now being able to advance in their career with the
Yeah,
information that they learned.
yeah,
So
yeah.
this
Then they can take it and get a paid, gig, maybe, however many months down the line, or whenever they're ready.
is very good. So I have to ask you, what or how do you define a mogul millennial?
Yeah, yeah. So a mogul millennial is someone that's a change agent,
Mhm.
ultimately. And so there's someone that's super relentless and, accomplishing their goals, whether that's through their 9 to 5, if they're in the corporate space, or if it's through their business, if they're an entrepreneur. And so no matter what the naysayers have to say about, whatever it is that they want to accomplish, or whatever obstacles that have been put in place, just
Mhm.
based off of where they're at in society or their economic status. They don't adhere to none of those. They don't let they really truly affect them, and
Mhm.
they go after the bag and try to live up no matter what. And so to me, a mogul millennial is a mindset. It's not necessarily like, you know you have to be a millennial,
Mhm.
or whatever, to be a mogul millennial.
That's dope. I like the ending too. They're getting to the bag no matter what.
Yeah, no matter what. Because like, even it's funny because, like, I think I told you earlier before we started the interview,
Mhm.
I'm in Texas. I'm in Dallas, to be exact. And when I remember when I first got my very first investment, one of the things that they found cool was that, and it's funny that they found it cool, but
Mhm.
is that I'm from Texas. And so
Uh-huh.
a lot of people, when they think about, tech startups or media companies, period, they think about New York, or they think
Mhm.
about California.
Yeah, that's true.
But, and if I would have let that, if I would have really took that into account, I wouldn't have started Mogul Millennial, because I would have thought, okay, well, I can't launch a media company unless I'm in California or unless
Yeah.
I'm in New York. But, like, who cares? You can be wherever you want to be, especially nowadays.
Yeah, that's true. Now people work from home and make millions from home, so it doesn't matter.
Exactly, exactly.
Okay, so I know 2020 is in the past, and a lot of us don't even want to think of it, but how would you say the pandemic has affected you? Because I know some people, they say that it was terrible, and other people say it started off bad, but they were able to pivot and make a transition that has helped them or their business grow. So how has it been for you?
Yeah, so I'm sorry with the good. So from well, I'm sort of batting on a good note. So
Okay.
I would say, from the bad, it was crazy because that was actually so when 2020 hit, was at the beginning of the year, I had actually gotten my first investment. I went through an accelerator program, so I got investment money by going through the accelerator program. And so I got my very first investment, and I was able to take that money and apply it to different areas of my business. One area was personnel.
Hmm.
With the pandemic that occurred, basically it 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 took a lot from my business, in regards to I wasn't able to really, like, hire like I wanted to, because the reality was, or yeah, not is, but the reality was, at that time, even though we had this investment money, I didn't want to spend all of my investment money on personnel, because the investment was a small investment.
Hmm.
And so the idea was for me to be able to, maybe hire on a few people. But when the pandemic occurred, I actually only hired 2 people. And then I set money aside to do, like, contract positions here and there, because I had to then kind of just rethink about my budget and what made sense, because we were, like, in a place of unknown. And so
Hmm.
that really sucked, because, super excited at that time. I was officially a year full-time entrepreneur, and I was ready to, like, officially, like, get help. And so I've had to find ways to just be creative since then. And now that we are, bringing in revenue, I'm able to, now think about hiring personnel again. Um,
That's
I
good.
was, yeah, yeah, but yeah, it. Oh my God, it was so crazy though. So I would say, as far as the positive, that happened. So from the start, Mogul Millennial has always been, in, like a virtual company, right? And so all of our employees, not employees, excuse me, all of the people that work with us, all of our team members, they're volunteer, they're remote, right? And
Hmm.
so with that, we've always done things remotely. And so with that, I think that the pandemic has helped us think about other ways where we can not only serve our current team members, but also our community at large, but more from a remote perspective. And so since then, we've actually launched one of our first event series, which is the quick pitch, and it's a practice pitch event for Black founders.
I did see
And
that. Okay.
yeah, it's super cool. We did our first one last August, and essentially how it works, we basically link up with a startup leader or an investor,
Mm-hmm.
and they basically take an hour out of their day and they give feedback to a couple of Black founders on their pitch. And so if you think about it, that's something that's super crucial because you don't really know that your pitch sucks until
Someone
you get
tells
that
you.
no. Yeah. And even then, even then, when you do get a no, it's very rare that an investor will actually give you like really constructive feedback on why they're not investing in you. They may just say, oh, you're not a great fit right now or whatever. They don't really give you feedback. And so since Mogul Millennial was built for the culture and it's us, we bring on people that look like us. So they're all Black investors, all Black startup leaders. And prior to then, I had a conversation with them and tell them like, hey, it's our people, it's us. You know, you know, feel free to be, to give them super constructive criticism because, if no one else is going to tell us, who will? And so that's like one of the proudest things that has been birthed out of the pandemic is a quick pitch. And
Mm-hmm.
we actually have one tomorrow on February 23rd.
Mm-hmm.
But since then, we had our first one in August and we've had four, if I'm counting right, four. And yeah, we've been able to put it on like every other month or so.
I feel like that's really, really beneficial.
Yeah, it is.
Okay, so I know you work hard a lot. You constantly, I feel like you probably have, like everyone else, a ton of tabs in your mind that are just open. And you
Yeah.
even know like which one to close, or sometimes this one's left open for too long, so you got to go back. So, how would you describe your self care? Do you self care? Do you take time to just shut things down and worry about you and not
Mhm.
just Brittany and the Mogul Millennial?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. I remember like at a very, very young age, my mom always told me like, and I was little, like elementary school little,
Mhm.
and she was like, I know you probably had a hard day, but no matter what, you should take an hour out for yourself. And
Uh-huh.
so I'm a bath girl. I love baths. And so that's the way that I unwind is with like a really, really good bath.
Mhm.
And I bring my wine in there with me and just like chill out. But really, the way that I unwind is not outside of that, it's not necessarily one particular thing. It really just depends on my mood. And so, whatever I'm in a mood for, that's self care to me. So, if that is, I want to cook, then that's self care. If I want to spend, an hour or a few hours just watching something like weird on TV, like,
Mhm.
you know, something like The Housewives, like, I don't want to say trash TV because that's me, but you know what I mean. Just
It's a
not like,
guilty pleasure. I get it.
yeah,
I used to watch
yeah.
Love and Hip Hop, like, and people used to look
I
at
haven't
me
watched that
crazy.
since Cardi B was on it, just because
Me
I feel
too.
like it started feeling more fake.
Hmm. I
But
used to guilty pleasure. Just call it
yeah,
that.
whatever your guilty pleasure is, and so to me, that's self care.
Hmm.
Just doing what you want to do or what I want to do for whatever allotted amount of time. That's my self care.
And it makes you feel good, and then you kind of like reset and then go back
Yeah.
to doing what you have to do.
Yeah, I like to do things that where it doesn't require me to think a lot, and so that's why like the Real Housewives
Mhm.
or like a Living Hip Hop, you don't really have to do a lot of thinking. You just watch and be entertained.
Hmm. That's very, very true. So I know like we're running out of time just a little bit, but I'm going to ask you one final question. This is just like a bonus question. I normally ask
Okay,
people this just for fun. So this
okay,
is
okay.
not, you don't have to think a lot for this one. So what is your go-to drink? Like let's say you go out, probably not now, but in the past when
Yeah,
you were able to
yeah.
go out without wearing a mask, what would be your go-to drink or champagne?
Okay, so definitely a French 75. And so I'm a gin girl. Like I
Mm.
love gin.
Uh-huh.
Like specifically Hendrix gin. And so I can't remember the exact name of it, but it's the one that it's like purple on the bottle on the label with
Uh-huh.
like some like a little floral design. But I love that bottle of gin. But I love a good French 75 with Hendrix gin and Saint Germain as well. And
Okay.
so
I've never
that's
had any of that. So now, every time I ask people this question and they tell me something new, I'm like noted, mentally noted.
oh
I could.
no, great. You have to Go get a French 75. Tell them some places will mess it up because you're supposed to use fresh lemon juice, but instead
Uh-huh.
they'll put lemonade. It's
Oh,
big difference. So make
okay.
sure, like, no, lemon is lemon, simple syrup, gin, and
Mhm.
they top it with a champagne.
Mhm. Oh, that
But then
sounds
I tell them to add the Saint Germain. The Saint Germain kind of makes it a little bit sweeter, so
okay.
it's delicious.
I love sweet drinks. So I'm going to email you, like, can I get the full
Yeah,
can you break it down for me again?
girl. Yeah, no, that's my jam. So I
Okay.
would happily send you the recipe for it. You can make it at home.
That's so good. So I'm pretty sure your self-care probably includes a little bit of that sometimes if you don't like the
Yeah.
wine and then just relaxing and watching TV. It's
Yep,
fine.
yep, yep. That's it. That is it.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Brittany, for taking time out of your day to do this with me. I know everyone has a busy schedule, and on top of that, we are in a pandemic. So I just want to say thank you so much.
Yes, of course. No, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. This was fun.